Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Nailing Your Threat Intelligence Strategy, Lessons from Vinted. The webinar is brought to you by Nordstella, a platform helping security teams get visibility into cyber threats. I'm not big on introductions and getting everything kicked off, but I do think it's important because it's a heavy topic. So this time I want to do a quick introduction into why we gathered here today and what we're going to be talking about. And it's important to outline that in today's interconnected world, organizations face a constant barrage of cyber threats that are becoming more sophisticated and unpredictable, whether that's because of growth in AI, other tools, so it's getting very sophisticated. And did you know that according to public reports, 68% of organizations believe their threat intelligence capabilities are insufficient to combat emerging threats effectively? So that's why we're going to talk about threat intelligence today. And well-defined threat intelligence strategy is actually no longer a luxury. It's a necessity for business of any size. And it is about going beyond just collecting that data. It's about turning that data into actionable insights that can help your security teams detect and respond to and even anticipate threats before they materialize. And throughout the session today, we'll look to cover three key things to outline and hopefully cover fully into detail. So key learnings from building effective threat intelligence program, what works, what doesn't, etc. Then we'll talk about leveraging dark web intelligence for actionable threat detection and insights. And then we'll cover some tips, practical tips to overcome common challenges, whether it's managing data overload, security stakeholder buy-ins, scaling operations effectively, and so on. I'm Gerald Kasulis, and I'll be your moderator for the session today, joined by the two cybersecurity experts, Aurimas from Vinted and Deividas from European Central Bank, who brings a wealth of experience and insight into ever-evolving threat landscape. So I know it's been a relatively long introduction, but Deividas, Aurimas, perhaps you could quickly introduce yourselves?
So I can start probably. So I'm Deividas. I've been in CTI, cybercrime threat intelligence, cyber threat intelligence for the past 7 years almost. So I'm currently working in the European Central Bank as a CTI analyst, CTI consultant, and recently I was working as well in North Security and threat protection as threat intelligence researcher. That's quick information about me.
Hi, morning, day or evening, wherever you are. My name is Rudinskis. I lead the cyber defense team at Vinted. We focus on minimizing security risks and protecting business, our current customers' data, and constantly look for to identify the evolving cyber threats. We really like when the bad guys cry when we detect the stuff we do, and we are here to share some threat intelligence insights with you today.
Excellent. Thank you, Deividas. Thank you, Aurimas. So with that, let's dive into it. And I want to break the ice with one simple question to both of you. Threat intelligence strategy, what does that mean to you and your organization? So I know it could mean many different things, whether that's going to be proactive defense for organizations, context-driven insights, but what does that mean to you? Deividas, perhaps you can start with that.
Yeah, so in my opinion, cyber threat intelligence is like proactive risk management. Basically, you're anticipating potential attacks, potential adversaries will, let's say, send phishing links to your employees or something like that. You're basically anticipating something that will happen. And you're providing information to SOC teams, basically, look, this is malicious domain, this is sending phishing emails, we need to block that. As well, you're tracking everything what is happening in threat landscape. For example, currently, AI-driven disinformation is happening. So CTI basically is intel without noise. Basically, you're removing all noise, what is happening, and just focusing on what's needed for your company.
And there's a lot of noise, definitely. Aurimas, what about you?
Think dividing the threat intel strategy into three key components. The first being the threat modeling. I think you need to know all your assets and at least some information about your enemies. So collecting some of that data and building the picture really helps. The second key component in this equation is the risk assessments and the business continuity management. I think the threat intelligence perfectly provides the input to these two fields. And last but not least, the threat intel can really support the data-driven decisions. The organization can use that information to plan and to better control the expenditures and what needs to be tackled next.
Excellent. So Aurimas then jumping into, obviously, as part of the major topic, right, talking about Vinted itself. Can you perhaps walk us through the most pressing security threats that Vinted is facing right now, for instance?
Sure. I think we are not that unique compared to other e-commerce markets and platforms. So the biggest challenge for us is to, determine and battle those bad actors who impersonate our brand. They use our platform to scam our customers, we call them members. Also, the ongoing activities to just, benefit by doing those fraudulent activities. And there's plenty of challenges we face. Also, like, we need to protect our employees. And those also sometimes attempt to lose credentials or they get compromised. So we constantly tackle, and the biggest opportunity for us is to be one step ahead. And cyber threat intelligence really helps to determine what the bad actor is planning, what they attempt to do. So I think this is like, cat and mouse game, and sometimes we win, sometimes we lose, but this is an ongoing battle.
I think it goes back into Deividas' points as well, where he mentioned being proactive, right, when talking about threat intelligence strategy. And I think that's where way too many companies are reactive. And I think now we're getting into the point where proactivity is actually the key segment for effective threat landscape management. So what about what's unique about these type of threats, given Vinted's business model and the rapid growth you guys had over the last years? And like you said, obviously, it's what you guys do. It's not necessarily unique. Many different organizations in e-commerce face these type of threats. But if you could elaborate on actual unique threats given your business model.
Yeah. So when an organization grows twice or even more like per year, the infrastructure grows also really fast, and the technical debt, or so-called shadow IT, is being introduced. So the engineers might leave something hanging with goodwill that we will fix something later. But to be honest, later will not happen, and lots of stuff being exposed, like your critical assets might be the entry gates into your infrastructure. Same applies to legacy stuff, because then organization grows pretty fast. Lots of stuff is being deprecated not so fast, and that creates lots of friction and risks. So I think integrating the intelligence provided by just enumerating what you have in your perimeter and proactively identifying those risks and at least implementing compensating controls really help.
Absolutely. So I think that's definitely clear that growth brings its own challenges, and being able to stay on top of those, especially as you grow twice or even more a year, is the key. Deividas, what about other industries from your experience, what you've seen as well? Obviously, some organizations go a very, very rapid scale, some not so much. Does the sort of exposure to threat landscape grows at the same pace, especially as, for instance, Vinted, pretty much as it gets exposure, gets target on their back, right? So those type of organizations probably get targeted a lot more proactively as well from threat actors.
So as Aurimas mentioned, they're running twice a year. It's attack surface is pretty much expanding by tons. More employees, more cloud instances, more third-party vendors, more geographies. For example, Vinted was in Lithuania. Then if I'm not mistaken, they moved to France. So geographic is expanding. As CTI analyst, as CTI manager, you need to understand those things. Okay, we're moving to France. These are threat actors that are targeting, let's say, e-commerce websites, e-commerces. So we need to expand our threat intelligence strategy, prioritize on business critical risk. For example, map out new CTI drivers, map out and triage all the things like add more third-party risk intelligence, monitor vendors, what we are having, what we will have in, for example, France. Then monitor those vendors. Are they being breached? They have any exposed APIs to understand if they are gonna be breached. Are we gonna be involved in that as well? Will that breach give us some kind of potential attack surface? So it's like you need to basically, whenever you're growing, you need to basically understand that you need every single quarter and every single year to expand your threat models by quarterly, whenever you're expanding, or just trying to understand what is happening around the world by geographically, by other new AI methods, attacking methods. So it's constant fights, cat and mouse fights, especially in CTI, because you're catching mouse all the time.
Managing those exposure points becomes a lot more complicated, I assume, as you grow, and especially obviously in e-commerce, for instance, and beyond that, as well as you work with a lot more vendors. So it's not just your organization. What about specific, maybe you could name some specific incidents, examples that illustrate these type of challenges, and could be related to Vinted, could be related to generic what we've seen over the last maybe 12 to 24 months, especially due to growth of generative AI and attacks targeted certain organizations, whether that's going to be in Europe or the US?
I believe everyone saw on TikTok or on YouTube, it's like ads, pushing ads with generative AI. When, let's say, Elon Musk is talking something there, he will donate like 2 Bitcoins to someone if someone sends him like some Bitcoins. Like these frauds are happening and they are constant. At least in my current experience, we are currently seeing everything from that side. Some of our executives, some of my previous company executives being like mimicked, and phishing pages are being created constantly, and everyone's like trying to scam people. Like constant fight with them.
And having strong threat intelligence strategy, does that help reduce those type of exposure points?
Well, in my opinion, it helps. I would say not a lot, but it helps. It helps a lot. From one side, not a lot. From another side, a lot. So yeah, at least we know that some of our executives or CEOs or whatever, it's like being targeted by those threat actors. So we need to focus on them a bit more to understand broader threat landscape. If they're gonna be at least attacked today, maybe they will be attacked tomorrow. So you need to understand where, what, and how to take out those domains, for example. How to tackle those TikTok or malicious ads, how to take down those. So.
Absolutely. And Aurimas, what about from your experience? And obviously, when it comes to specific incidents, doesn't have to be necessarily related to Vinted, but from your experience, what are your thoughts on that?
I think one of the biggest challenge most organizations currently face is the elasticity or dynamics of the cloud. Lots of stuff is being migrated to cloud, and due to elasticity of it, a lot of assets are being exposed and being forgotten. Due to that, just spinning something new. So I think most of the organization need to add that into risk management portfolio. That the cloud is not panacea. Someone will discover your unprotected assets or outdated stuff, and know about it, because having something as a service does not say that you are bulletproof. So I think just speaking out loud about the general approach is that the understanding about the cloud is pretty, requires improvement. And another thing is the hype about artificial intelligence, right? It will solve all the, talent shortage problems and things like that. I think that's the wrong impression. Human beings still there, and we need those, smart people who will tackle all those new challenges.
Absolutely. So Aurimas, then, that's a great point you bring up. And so how does the organization make sure that they don't really overlook legacy infrastructure? Does that go up to constant patching, updates? How do you manage all of that to make sure that nothing is left behind, especially when concerning about legacy infrastructure? And obviously you go to digitalization of newer cloud infrastructures.
There's a term called external attack surface monitoring. This includes knowing everything the organization has in a perimeter and also in external perimeter. So like cloud assets and everything around it. So if you have identity as a service provider, let's say Okta, you need to know everything you have in there. So constantly enumerating and identifying all those assets, stating the criticality of those interdependencies and whatnot, really helps to know, what you have, the criticality of your systems, what impact it would create. As I said in the beginning, you need to know what you have and to constantly determine what your enemies are about to do.
Absolutely. It's interesting. It reminds me of the time when I worked for a company where we used to manage infrastructure a lot as well, but related to the data. And we used to run a tool that looks at the data of the organization, right? Everything from legacy to cloud infrastructure. And probably more than 50% of the customers, they didn't really know how much data they have and where the data was. So when we used to run that tool and we outline the type of data they have, where they have it, the type of infrastructure there is, a lot of customers, they didn't even know about it, especially into specific details. So it kind of goes back to your point as well, where the exposure point from threat landscape is just massive for most of the organizations, especially as they grow at a rapid scale. So I actually want to touch on from threat intelligence, especially on the dark web side of things. And obviously we hear about dark web a lot lately, right, for right or wrong reasons. When it comes to threat intelligence, dark web stands out as a unique one, especially. Should companies use dark web monitoring tools? And better question probably would be how companies should use it, because obviously I think everyone knows that companies should be using it because that's where the sort of threat actors use it day to day. But how companies should be using those type of tools?
So let's start, I think, from the beginning. I can chip in. So, dark web monitoring is basically a strategic approach to it. Like, it provides with some visibility into stolen data. For example, credit card details, credentials, payment cards, email, passwords. Is like basically threats that are targeting regular people. And sometimes there are like companies, company credentials, company leaks, cookies, session tokens. It's like happening there as well. So from CTI perspective, you need to have like clear purpose. What is this data gonna do for us? You need defined objectives. For example, will we protect our customer data? Detecting insider threats, maybe we have some kind of insider threat that is serving that data. As well, companies would focus on specific assets. For example, domain names. If your company is not tracking domains that you already have, and that those domains are going to expire, like threat actors are like tracking those, and sometimes they're even reselling those in dark web. So you can track those things. You can track as well your employee email addresses for tracking purposes. Maybe they're like logging in their own email with company's laptops, and that could be potential entry point for attackers. You can set up, let's say, alerting systems to some specific keywords. Let's say company name that data. So you know that maybe it's your company's like your company X that data breach. Like you know that your company was maybe breached. You need to understand that.
So how should company approach it? Because obviously like I said, the market is very loud now when it comes to dark web monitoring tools as well, and every company or vendors talking about it. How should company approach that? Does that come into specific research for specific companies, or certain threat landscape plan itself? How to plan for it? What type of tools companies should be using proactively when it comes to dark web monitoring?
Well, in my opinion, every single CTI and every single company has different needs, and different tools are necessary for it. So, for example, I know what Northstellar does. I know what other threat intelligence platform does. Some of those platforms could give me better idea about some other things than other platforms. So you need to combine. Either you choose one that is for your specific needs, or you're just choosing different ones. Or at the end, if you have CTI analysts, you have SOC people, you have like engineers, you can create your own some kind of service that will scrape some, let's say, forums, some Telegram channels, some list bins, and just parse that data to you. So it's like the CTI itself and dark web monitoring is just you need to use your imagination regarding that.
Okay, and Aurimas, what about Vinted? How do you guys use dark web intelligence tools? Well, firstly, obviously, better question would be, do you guys use those type of tools, and how do you use it? Does that play a strategic strategy in the organization to make sure it utilizes it to the best security approach?
My understanding, or my view about the darknet is that it's like, opposite to the clear web. So lots of stuff that we have in social media is being done, in the underground. Just those bad actors discuss, what works, what's not. They share the findings. We do a lot of analytics, and we see that they constantly, try to find the new ways for their operations. The scary part is that they attempt to more and more attempt to use the legitimate services for their fraudulent or bad activities. Another thing is that monitoring those darknet forums or so-called social media provides a lot of visibility towards where we are moving, what does not work for them, targeting specific brand or the platform. And this is like really viable information for most of the organizations to understand, the pain points the bad actors feel or get, and why we are not, achieving their goals towards your organization.
So actually, the touching right point here as well, which I was going to ask the next question about misconceptions about dark web intelligence, right? And like I said, maybe a lot of people from back in the day, they have wrong understanding of what dark web is. And I think, have you heard of, or I mean, from your exposure as well, what would be some common misconceptions about dark web? For instance, do teams overestimate what they can achieve in the dark web, how that information can be used? Like, for instance, I heard customers before saying, okay, there's those breaches and data available in dark web. Can I remove that? And that's one of the things, like, well, it's out there for exposure point, but you can't really remove it, but you can act upon it. What are the misconceptions you guys came across relating to dark web?
Well, I believe I have at least three in my mind right now spinning around. So it's like dark web monitoring doesn't stop breaches. It's just a tool that provides some intelligence upon which one you need to react. For example, you're setting your passwords, or setting your customer passwords, or setting up 2FA for them. Then there is assumption that dark web monitoring is really easy. It's dark web monitoring and websites and forums and all the channels and everything. It's multi-language. So basically, you can land up on some Russian website, Russian forum, which it's using Russian language, and you do not understand it. It's some of those website forums and people are using slangs. You cannot interpret that slang, so it's really hard to understand those things. And of course, random forms just giving irrelevant data for your company, for your industry, for companies. So this, I believe, most common misconceptions between like whenever I hear like CISO or someone from security says, "Oh, it's dark web monitoring is easy." No. This is not easy. It's like, do you understand Russian? Can your analyst like understand Russian? Can he like check on that? Like, no, he cannot, but he can use Google Translate. But like Google Translate will not translate or interpret slang from, let's say, Russian language to Ukrainian or Chinese or Japanese language. It will not translate, so you need to understand. So that's why you need some threat intelligence providers that would help with that. But still, it's like if you do not have threat intelligence platform, you do not understand those things, it's really hard.
Absolutely. I mean, intelligence, it comes from military terms, right? Where it's going to be gathering of information, right? And then you using that information to advance, right? So I think over here is like Deividas mentioned it correctly. It's about gathering that information, having that exposure that players in the market do, right? So companies should proactively do the same thing. I want to sort of lead into intelligence strategy itself, but then Aurimas, maybe you could chip in here as well. So when it comes to dark web monitoring, should it play a broader security landscape, as in terms of operation, should be part of that security landscape, dark web monitoring tools itself? And if so, how important it is, to be part of that strategy?
Okay, cool. I want to a bit like reflect to the previous one, because I received one question from my colleague, I think about a year ago. It resonates still to me. The question was that can like cyber threat intelligence be used to predict bad activities or activities the bad actors will do, in the near future? And because now, as we discussed, we are just playing cat and mouse game, and we as the good guys, we would like to tackle that once and for all by just analyzing what we do and predict what would be the next step. So it still resonates to me, and I'm still trying to tackle that, and still I think hope is near, and using AI or something similar will tackle that. But returning back to the original question, I think this needs to be inculcated, all these services in like daily operations, and it's sometimes it takes quite a time to provide findings or to show the benefit of such a service to the whole organization, to our like business units and our operations. But I think we are on a good track.
Okay, excellent. So we have threat landscape, we have dark web monitoring tools. So I think this leads perfectly into actually building that strategy for the organization, regardless of what size the organization is. And of course, goes all the way to massive enterprise organizations, even size of Vinted, for instance. So it's critical to look into building that strategy. So perhaps we can sort of touch on Vinted's approach into building threat intelligence strategy, and what does that look like? Where do you begin?
Yeah, I'll share some like high level details, because we are still like in the process or the quest.
Share too much.
Yeah, but what we started from is the identifying the most critical assets to us, to the organization, and like planning how we could support those by this bringing the intelligence, because just gathering data without analyzing it and just getting the gist, it's like useless. So for us, the challenge was how to provide that information to specific teams, because when we started just providing like recommendations, we did not get any support. And then we started like to brief and find that just analyzing and providing the insights worked really well for our engineers. And another thing for us now is just digest all that information, because this is like digital ocean of the data being collected, and it accumulates on a daily basis. So just planning on how to handle all that information or data, to convert it to information and to convert to insights.
Excellent. Or Deividas, anything to add from your experience, which obviously wouldn't be related to Vinted, but then the approach to that type of threats intelligence strategy build-up?
Well, firstly, like from threat intelligence perspective, you need to understand that you need the threat intelligence lifecycle to have it. Some companies do not, like, I know few companies, few like previous colleagues and some of my friends are working in intelligence, like they do not have any intelligence lifecycle. Intelligence lifecycle is basically, it's NIST based, it gives you like, I think six cycles of intelligence, what you need to do. So it is, first one is basically requirements, define what you need to collect. For example, if your company is in financial sector, collecting data about ransomware or threat actor groups that's attacking financial sector. With that collected, with those requirements, you're collecting data. You're gathering data from, let's say, dark web, from your vendors, from your other sources, using honest OSINT tools, using honeypots to gather that data. Then you're processing that data, removing duplicated IP addresses and everything. Then doing analysis. Basically, this is, for example, not relevant to us. This is not gonna attack us, for example. This is threat actor that is not relatable to financial sector. Then you're sharing those, say, indicators with SOC teams, incident responder teams, executives, maybe your managers as well. Because look, guys, we did that, we analyzed that, and this is what we found. And then you're just receiving feedback, refining your, let's say, requirements, refining gaps, what you missed. For example, you missed some phishing domains, you missed some recent attacks on financial sector. You're just refining requirements on those gaps. And then basically it starts once again, and so you're again collecting requirements, collecting data. So it's like, this is main thing.
I think that touches perfectly on the challenges itself. I think, David, you mentioned, right, being able to connect different teams and coordinate with different teams. And that's one of the questions I see we got from the audience as well, where the question is, how do you ensure that leadership understands the impact of threat intelligence, right? And it goes beyond just the leadership across different departments. But maybe when it comes to those challenges, we can combine it here. And how do we get that sort of leadership, stakeholder buy-in, understanding the importance of threat intelligence strategy and the obviously tools that need to go into and collaboration between the teams?
Well, this question is really hard. Sometimes even it's really hard for
many companies will be facing the same issue. So
yeah, it's like every single time whenever I'm working in, let's say, different CTI field, let's say North Security, I was working as threat intelligence researcher for threat protection. It was really hard to like state the importance of threat intelligence. My cybercrime threat intelligence career, it's really one of the, let's say, I would say, hardest thing to explain to executives, CEOs, for your managers, why CTI is necessary for your company and what kind of benefits from CTI you will receive. For example, I will just giving like broad example. You're seeing, like, say, APT group, Advanced Persistent Threat, is attacking some kind of company that is in your geographic location. This is in same industry. They were attacked like five days ago. You believe that they will attack you because it was already in your requirements. You see that same geographic sphere, same everything is the same. So you're gathering as much data as possible, tracking their infrastructure, blocking all infrastructure, blocking everything, IOCs, hashes, IPs, domains, mails, and everything. And then after 3 days, like, you see this spam comes from the same IP that you recently banned. On that side, you can say, hey, guys, look, I preemptively like blocked everything, and we save from this threat, at least for now, at least for a few days until they like rebuild everything. So my managers, whenever they saw that, they were really happy. So I believe like you need to show CTI that they're giving those things.
Yeah.
So from CTI perspective, you're building CTI products. So for example, threat analysis reports, security awareness reports. You're providing that as well. So it's,
Aurimas, you probably wouldn't be able to elaborate too much, but what about you and Vinted? How do you, especially early on when you're putting the strategy together, how do you convince the stakeholders on a buy-in that it is important? How did that conversation go? And different teams, obviously education is the key, right? But
Yeah, I think what really works is that mapping those, let's say, cyber threat intelligence metrics to business metrics and providing the monetary value. So, for example, you detect phishing domains, you take down those, and you can convert that information to, like, the support cases, the number of reduced cases, the reduced, monetary value for compensations. So something you prevented, and that can be, converted to like money-wise, and business understand that. So without not sharing, the raw numbers, you can provide like, insights how your work improved the, business growth and overall brand reputation, things like that. It takes a lot of time and, energy, but we, I think, as specialists need to dedicate time for the measuring what matters.
yeah, I think that's the difficulty, right? Because the stakeholders normally focus on the revenue side of things, right? The bottom line, and how does that affect it? But I think there are always ways to prove it if you do it effectively. Okay, so what about specific tools? We actually had a question around that come in as well from the audience. But what would be the specific tools and methodologies? We obviously don't want to dive into it too much. Of course, North Stellar is one of those tools, but any other effective ways or methodologies proven to be more effective than others? Any recommendations for the audience?
I think I have just core ones like methodologies, IOCs, like just mapping adversity tactic techniques and procedures. Always you basically can identify your potential gaps in your infrastructure and everywhere. If you have diamond model, it's like analyzing intrusions linked with adversaries, their infrastructure capabilities and potential victims, like in your company. You have cyber kill chains. Basically, it breaks attacks into stage how attack is happening currently. It's like, and you can disrupt adversaries by early stages of that. And that's, I think, main ones, like low-hanging fruits that every CTI team should have, like main things. And from, let's say, effective tools, you have awesome. It's like Spiderfoot is basically footprinting, showdown exposes devices. Gray noise is widely used you can scan data there as well. You have some threat feeds that are in MISP. MISP with shared IOC port thing you could have. I could use Alien Vault. It's like community-driven feed, so we can use those things. It's like free. Everything is free on that side, and as well we can use different paid ones.
So definitely a lot of ways to put that strategy together and utilize it, best practices. Okay, excellent. And one of the things I want to come back to as well, Aurimas, you mentioned the importance of actually dedicated time for modeling that threat intelligence itself and then communicating between the teams and so on. Could you maybe share a little bit more, elaborate on how these practices can shape the company's strategy and any tips on how to do so?
What really works well in practice is the collaboration with the product teams. So being like, really nearby to them, learning the craft of product ownership or product management, and, constantly like observing what we are developing and providing the insights, how those, new features can be like, abused business logic wise or similar. Because what I personally observed that most of the product teams, they have goals to monetize something, to convert the idea to some monetary stream. And cyber threat intelligence specialist can provide the insights, what the bad guys would do, how we would have used those, specific features, just prototyping the attack vectors, sharing those insights really help, to improve the product, its features, and overall safety.
Excellent. I think that answers the question. And I know we're kind of moving towards the last bit of the webinar, and I think it's important to touch on operational challenges. Obviously, we put the strategies together now. We understand how to do that, at least at a high level. But there's certain challenges that we kind of face, and also what would be the tips to face and take away as well. So maybe Aurimas, you can outline this as well. What would be the sort of the bigger hurdles, the challenges when it comes to operational incorporation or that you guys encountered and managing the threat intelligence when you put that plan together, when you present it? Any hurdles?
Yeah, so I think the biggest challenge, at least for us, is I call those unknown unknowns. So what we don't know, what we are not aware. So for example, someone is abusing our infrastructure or platform, and we are not aware of those, especially like if you take like a business logic wise into equation. So it's hard to know all the moving parts, and especially if we are not like near the or not being like part of the equation or the funnel, it's hard for us to determine if it's like legit or someone is like abusing us. Another thing is just digest all those data lakes. I would say there's a plenty of information being aggregated on it or collected on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And for cyber threat intelligence, it's like really beneficial to digest everything and to reduce that or convert that noise into signal.
And how do you convert that noise? How do you reduce it? Because I think that's one of the things that many companies see, and maybe that's why a lot of companies get put off by it as well. I always say everything is nothing, right? So at the same time, when you have that much information, you have that noise, how do you manage that noise and cherry pick what's important for your organization to dedicate time and resources into?
So the first thing is just to prioritize, as you mentioned. Just like if you have 3 priorities, you don't have priorities. So we worked hard just to remove what's like not priority for us, and we try to map that to like the monetary wise or like affected customers, something that could be like data driven. And that was the first point to identify where we should put our focus on. Then just knowing that our focus will be like, identifying the what bad actors do in specific segment. We focused on that. We got into collaboration with some of the vendors. We selected, what works for us best, and when we started like, implementing the solutions.
Okay, excellent. So now we reduce that noise, we put a plan together, and obviously we need to understand on CTI itself as a concept and certain takeaways that we need to have, certain tips and so on. You guys, live and breathe CTI, right? You live and breathe cyber threat intelligence. You know a lot about it. Many people that work at different organizations, they don't, but they need to start paying attention to that. Knowing what you know now about CTI, about building that strategy, that intelligence strategy, any specific advice would you give to past selves, if any? Both of you? That I'm curious to hear.
I believe I have few like main things that I would say to myself, a younger myself. It's like I should like to focus on intelligence again, revolving around threat actors. Basically, sometimes you need to understand your biggest enemy, to understand how they work, what they are doing, better protect your company or your customers on the side. And probably the second one would be like collaborate more with other organizations. For example, industry groups. You may even collaborate with government agencies, share intelligence with them because they are sharing intelligence as well. You can gather more intelligence. It may sometimes produce false positives, but that false positive, I would say, is a bit better to have one false positives and 10 true positives than 0 true positives.
A great learning point, right?
Yeah.
Aurimas, what about you?
The older I get, I prioritizing two things like soft skills and prioritization. So in a day we have 24 hours, and we need to carefully, plan what we want to tackle, what we want to achieve throughout the day. And also now I'm more and more thinking that, clear communication, writing skills are really beneficial for anyone. And we need to constantly, find the ways to improve those. Because when I was younger, I was thinking it was like maybe more dedicating time and effort for the hard skills, like, learning the techniques, tooling and stuff like that. But the older, I'm getting, like, I believe that's just people skills is a must, because in cyber threat intelligence that works really because we need to transfer that technical knowledge to maybe not so tech savvy people, and skills to achieve that really benefits.
Absolutely. And that's how you guarantee the buy-ins as well, right? So it wouldn't go over people's heads, and you can talk their language rather than your language.
Yeah, it's really hard whenever it's like when you are talking with your, let's say, some executive or higher up, it's like you're talking to tech heavy side. It's like you're talking like, this is IOC, this is TTP, this is doing that, and we need to protect against that. And he's just he or she just looking at you and he's like, what?
Yeah.
But what he's talking, I just need to understand. Is this like applicable to us? What we need to do? So yeah, soft skills in CTI is necessary, especially when you're talking with higher ups. It's like,
absolutely. So, throughout the webinar, we talked about putting universal threat intelligence strategy of some sort, right, for the organization. My question is it possible to develop one playbook that companies could reuse when it comes to the strategy itself? Or is it very unique and individual to different companies that, could be depending on the industry? What are your thoughts on that? Is there a way to put something together like a playbook that companies could copy and paste and use it? For instance, Aurimas, what you did with Vinted, can we just copy and paste it, give it to another organization? Or strategy as such, it's very unique?
I think the strategy as such is really unique, and really depends, the size of the organization, the maturity, because the maturity really requires understanding about the specific of cyber threat intelligence. I believe there were at least 5 attempts to create the cyber threat intelligence capability maturity model. Now we have, I believe last year, the new version has been released. So lots of being done to create something what, like, most of the organizations could use. But this is, challenge, because the goals are different. The challenges the organizations face are really different. And I think there's no, silver bullet to tackle everything.
Yeah, that's right, spot on, because you have cyber threat intelligence lifecycle for everyone is the same, but how you tackle it's really different. It's like, from, let's say, in threat protection, we had the different things how we tackle those things. When I was working in pharmaceutical company as CTI, we had different things. When I was working in law enforcement as cybercrime threat intelligence chief investigator, we tackled those things differently. And I'm working right now in financial sector. It's different once again. So the main concepts stays the same, but how you tackle it's like really different.
So, I'm putting a new strategy together. I have a big organization, like a couple thousand people. I'm putting the strategy together. And, I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to try to find a playbook. And I know maybe the approach is going to be different. How do I start? Any specific maybe lessons that I could learn from you guys that I could apply rather than going through myself and learning from my own mistakes?
I believe NIST framework has CTI and lifecycle and everything that you need, at least on some low level, at least when you're starting out. and then you just SANS certification would help. I think besides that, I would say nothing else. I would come to my mind right now.
Aurimas, can I learn from Vinted?
I have a couple of practical suggestions. So the first one is, I believe mentioned that just know your assets, know everything you have, all the details about the employees, about your, what you have on a cloud, on-prem and whatnot. Another thing is just, define all those critical business services, what your business stands, or without, define what's really beneficial. And knowing that would be your key assets, which you crown jewels, which you would like to protect. And all your strategy should be at least focusing around those. So this is, I believe 2 building blocks on which you could start building that strategy.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. I'm very conscious of the time, so I think this has been great, and we have some questions from the audience. So if there are any more questions, drop us the questions. But I want to make sure we have time to go through some of those questions. And I think one of the questions we have, which many of us could be thinking about, is actually around AI. How do we think AI will reshape threat intelligence and how to handle that? Any risk to relying on AI too much? What are your thoughts? Quick fire questions.
I can already say AI as it helps. It helps to quickly analyze data and everything. For example, but you need human interaction and those things because you're making the decision on how do you proceed with that decision. Some AI models are not trained onto that, so you need human interaction, those things, and the AI will not change CTI at least 5 years from now, but in the future it might change. But threat actors, adversaries are having those AI models as well as RAD-GPT. They're having those as well, so they're using those as well. So it's combined effort between security teams and hackers. Basically, use AI every day.
Rely on it, but don't rely on it as a source, as a single source. Aurimas, what about you?
I'm more optimistic compared to Deividas. I think that AI is the perfect tool to do the grunt work. It can just correlate data, extract the signal from all that noise, do all the integrations, feed the collected data into your thread feeds, whatever, and it can act as a junior CTI engineer, so reducing the manual work and creating more interesting work to the employees.
Excellent. Long story short is we should be using it, but be cautious how you use it. Okay. Are there any industry trends or emerging threats that companies should prepare for in 2025? Obviously, it could be AI related, but what are your thoughts on this, guys?
Well, I can say from CTI perspective, it's just geopolitical situation. What is going on around the world? Cyber warfare is going on. It's currently constantly for the past 3-4 years is going on. At least in Lithuania, I know that, and Poland, Lithuania, Germany, Switzerland is currently DDoS attacks constantly ongoing on some sectors. It's you need to understand your geolocation, geographics, and everything. What's going on? With whom your country leadership is talking? Who they might, let's say.
Absolutely.
I don't know if that's something like that.
Aurimas?
I think more and more attacks will be targeting the data, because what I personally saw that the Gartner identified a new concept called the data security, and if we talk about security in depth, I think organizations should also start investing more into protecting the data, where first thing maybe to identify where we store the data and what data do we have. As we talked at the beginning, for most of the organizations, it's challenge to identify where they store data, how they process it, and so first thing, just identify what you have and then focus on securing the data you have and you collect.
And I think that leads perfectly into another question we have from the audience the question is, how do you handle false positives and ensure intelligence is actionable?
Well, false positives is always there. So it's like,
It will be there, right?
you cannot have like 0% false positive rates. Tell me whatever you want. It's like, you will not prove me that there will be like 0% false positive rate. No, false positives will always be here, but you need to mitigate them as quickly as possible. That's like.
Aurimas?
There's a saying that, many false positives lead to alert fatigue. And in those cases, those engineers just attempt to just, disable something to reduce the noise. And as Deividas said, those false positives are here to stay. And I think what engineers could do, just, dedicate more time and effort, identifying what could be done to just, reduce the noise and improve the detection quality and capabilities.
Absolutely. And as we actually moving towards the conclusion of the webinar, we can tackle the last question as a key takeaway. And the last question from the audience we have, any really quick tips that come into your mind how to mature your CTI program? So quick fire tips to the audience, how to mature your cyber threat intelligence program.
Well, on the side, this depends on which stage you are currently are with this CTI program and everything. But in reality, just stop working with IOCs, just move with TTPs, adversaries, focus on those things. Because there is like picture of pyramid of pain. There is like IOCs at the bottom, there is TTPs, it's like really painful. So one thing that I would focus if I started out CTI once again, it's like to mature it. So it would be TTPs, adversaries, and how they're working to threat hunt and do everything, because that will mature it. CTI platform and everything.
Great tip. Aurimas, tip from you?
Constantly challenge your biases. We as human beings, we attempt to get or use the shortcuts. So don't use that and challenge your biases.
Absolutely. I always like to say we're creatures of habit, right? So regardless how technical you are or how senior, how junior, we always look for easy way, right? For creatures of habits of how we operate and so on. So absolutely great advices, guys. Well, excellent. We are on the last minute of the webinar. So to the audience, thank you for listening in. If you do have any other questions or want us to dive deeper into any of the topics discussed, feel free to reach out to Deividas, to Aurimas, to myself, LinkedIn, and so on. We'll be happy to connect, happy to jump on a call and talk, have one-on-one sessions. So feel free to reach out. And as always, Nostella is here to help you gain visibility into threats and empower your security team with actionable insights. So reach out, happy to provide you more information around Nostella, around cyber threat intelligence itself. Thank you so much to the speakers, Deividas, Aurimas, excellent. I appreciate you sharing your wisdom and knowledge, your experience in building CTI plans together for massive organizations. So it's been very enriching for myself, and hopefully the audience enjoyed it also. And have a great evening, everyone. Have a great day wherever you are, and hope to connect with everyone on a further information and webinars we'll have in the future. Thank you so much.